עמוד התפילה, אוס עין ה'. בשם ליצור בעל שם טוב שמעתי, this is from רב יאיבי. שהשם קוזו, כובב זין ווב, הוא החריים של שם הוויה. So we're back. We started about this subject last time. That the name of creation, the name of being, is the name that gives life to all. It's within all, it surrounds all, it fills all. But this name dressed up as many things, and this is how we have all the different bechinas that exist. And those bechinas become so materialized until we actually see it as realities. We see physical things, we see bodies, we see movement, we see behaviors, we see emotions. All these are materializations of a form of address to the original name, the name of being, the name that is all. And each dress is a different way of interacting with that being, with that power, with that force that gives life and gives form to everything that exists. And so the way that existence comes out from the name is through something called tzirufei oisius, chilufei oisius, and tmuras, where we're going to switch the locations of the letters, and by doing that we're going to change behavior. So we're going to put what's more important than what, we're going to put the order of priority differently. And so then the same set of information can result in completely different meaning. Let's say if we do it in a word, it would mean to change the letters, the location of the letters. And the same word can take on a new meaning by changing the way, the direction of how I read the letters. So for example, the word Hashem, which means the name, if I rearrange it, I can also read Moshe. And that's not by mistake. All the tzirufim have meaning. If we can understand the meaning, that gives us access to the origin of language. The origin of language gives meaning based on every detail that exists in the formation of the letters and in the vowels. Because a letter is incomplete without a vowel. A letter is a theoretical idea unless there's a vowel, and then a letter becomes something that can be pronounced. And so every letter has a vowel, and the vowel gives it meaning. If we change the vowel, we also change the meaning. And so the meaning goes back all the way to the origin of speech, and so every meaning is based on the actual original human experience. This is what we require to believe. When we say we should have faith, we should have emunah, we require some form of belief. That belief is the belief in the intelligence that resides inside of us. And that belief connects us to the origin of speech, where the intelligence inside of us was facing this realization that it now needs to formalize itself in sounds, and by doing that it can completely lose access to itself and to the meaning of being it. And so we need to have faith in that intelligence, that it wouldn't just randomly jump and do a creation that has no meaning, because then really it would cut us off from what it means to be us. We have to have faith that this process was a meaningful process, guided by the intelligence, just like the intelligence that's searching for the meaning. The same intelligence that's searching for the meaning was also facing having to create the meaning, in order to get dressed up into reality. And so there was an original process of how things came to be. And the first step in this process is to give just the sounds meaning, to recognize the real meaning of the sounds. What does it mean to a human being? This comes before speech. Each sound needs to have a meaning. And when that sound has a meaning, from there forward, that sound is going to dress up into words, because the force that's being activated by that sound somehow has a relationship with what was created. This is what we're trying to emphasize. And so the faith in the intelligence runs through everything that exists. Our faith in the intelligence means that we believe that the one that created accurately according to a pre-designated plan that's wise, and that's fair, and that's kind, and that's compassionate. We believe that about the designer. We believe in the intelligence that designed. We believe in the intelligence that dwells within. If we don't believe in the intelligence that dwells within humanity, we won't reason with them in a fair way. And so it's the same intelligence. Everything that was designed by that one intelligence, and it's learning to have faith in that intelligence. And that means to have faith in all the processes that have taken place within creation. And so when the name of being dresses up, it dresses up through the changing of the letters, meaning the order of the forces and what takes importance over what. And also the tmuras. Tmuras means that there's different ways, different codes of how letters interchange with each other. And so to change with the code would mean to remain consistent with that code. So for example, one of the codes is called adbash. Adbash means the first letter is paired up with the last letter. The second is paired up with one before the last. And in this order it goes. This is a known Kabbalistic tmura. This is a known way of exchanging letters. And in this way, a lot of Mekubalim will explain meanings of things. And we can even find this in the Torah itself. That the Torah uses adbash in order to describe a word. I think the word is sheishach, where it means bovel. But whatever it is, there's a word in the Nach that's actually exchanged by adbash. So this is an approval of the Nevi'im to this method. They're giving us an insight into their code and how the code of the universe dresses up the forces. And we also see in Tanakh that the Torah uses Targum, the Torah uses Aramaic, like the word machzeh. And so these indications tell us about language and about the origins of things and about the secrets of the formation of the human personality, of the root of all human culture. Because all the cultures are based first on language. Without language, you can't articulate anything. And so there might be common behavior, but it can't be expressed. It can be dictated. It can be kept from generation to generation. It just would have a free flow. But here, you have an actual structure that you can give instruction, and this is very dangerous. This means we're interfering with the spiritual side of the being. Language gave humans the capability to interfere with each other's spirits. It's not enough that they can control each other physically, they can hurt each other. Now there's a much more subtle way of hurting each other that sometimes is not even obvious that they're hurting, and therefore evil people can get away with evil because what? I'm not hurting anyone, he might say. And yet spiritually, he very much is hurting. those around him, and even themselves. Even an offensive thought is hurting. An offensive thought creates some type of an indication to reality about where humanity was and what it thought at a certain time under certain conditions. And that becomes reality. It wasn't real till then, and then it's real. And then it's always real. And it always was that way, and it always will be that way, and there's no really changing that. I mean, our relationship with it can change, but the facts don't change. And so a thought is offensive, a word is offensive. Speech gave humans the ability to really interfere with creation in a very deep way, in a very intimate way, until we don't even realize that it's humans that are interfering. We just blame God for everything. We blame the designer, but we're not really looking at what he designed in order to see the wisdom. We're just saying, well, the way it is not working. Yes, he knows that. It's working, it's just not working in our favor, because we haven't been paying attention. And so within the design of language are all these different ways of using it. And so until we would say that a human being today doesn't really know how to speak. He's somewhere between an animal that doesn't speak and an animal that speaks, but he's not really one who knows how to speak. One who knows how to speak is a prophet. A prophet knows how to speak, because he's versed in all these forms of language, so that his soul can, first of all, properly express itself, but even more importantly, won't fall into the traps of other people's speech, won't fall victim to the different types of manipulations that humanity is playing on each other. By knowing these forms of speech, speech is no longer something that can contain the soul, but rather speech is something where the soul swims, like it swims in water. It's free to go in any direction. It's free to make meaning of anything it wants in any way it wants. That's where the soul can finally find itself and not be trapped by the walls created by speech. And so this process is called, to see the acharayim of a word means to look at the letters that come after it. So the letters that come after the Shem Havaya, after the Yud comes a Kaf, after the Hey comes a Vav, after the Vav comes a Zayin, after the Hey comes a Vav. So you get Kuzu. And here, there's also something interesting about how the first half of the name reflects the entire name. Because the word Yud is spelled Yud Vav Daled. And the letter that comes after Yud is Kaf. And so the letter that comes after Yud has the same gematria as Yud. And the same thing happens by Hey. Hey is spelled Hey Aleph. One way of spelling it. Hey is spelled in three ways. The Rosh Tevis is He. Hey Yud Aleph. You can spell Hey with a Hey, you can spell Hey with the Yud, you can spell Hey with the Aleph. You spell it Hey Aleph, that's the regular way. It's gematria, the letter that comes after, which is Vav. So Chavav is the same as Yud Hey spelled out, and Yud Hey spelled out is 26, and 26 is when you have the whole name, Yud Hey and Vav Hey together, you get 26. And so the half of the name is like the whole name. The second half of the name is an extension of the first half of the name. Because the first half of the name is really the way that he interacts with existence. The second half of the name is a special addition he made just for humanity, because we haven't been cooperating. And so he decided, if we're not cooperating, he's going to become moody for us. Sometimes he's going to play along with us, and sometimes he's going to play angry. Because when he's just playing along with us, we definitely won't get it. And so this moodiness, which got added later, which is an addition in the anhaga of how he's going to lead the world, this came after the Mabul. This came specifically for man that's been cut down in size. And that was the time when the other nations started all their cultures. Before the Mabul, we don't know. There was no culture the way that we understand it. After the Mabul began the cultures, but all the cultures, the Torah calls them Elilim, little gods. And the reason they're little gods is because they only contain the lower level. They only contain the moody side of the Creator, but they don't give you access to the stable side of the Creator. After the Mabul, we lost access to the stable side of the Creator. The other cultures, they don't give you access to the stable side of the Creator. Our culture, at first, it presents itself as a culture, but within it is hidden a path towards the stable side of the Creator, the side that's unconditional. So at first we meet the conditional side. The conditional side is training. It's called Chanoich, and this is in charge of the world since the Mabul. This is what people have been dealing with and struggling with and trying to overcome. Trying to please the Lord that they haven't seen or don't know, and they're trying to please Him. And the Lord that they're trying to please is the stable side of the Creator. They want access to Him. They don't know that that's what they want. But that's the way the ladder has been set up. And that stability relates to the anhaga that's called Atika Kadisha, the leadership of the will that created life, the will that wants humanity to be, the will that's in love with us, even when we hate ourselves. And when that will is shining, then nothing can touch us. No one can hurt us. There's no moodiness. There's no sin. There's no forgiveness. There's no talking about forgiveness. Talking about forgiveness over there is making the place dirty. Because forgiveness would indicate that sometimes we're angry at each other. There was never anger. If there would be anger, there would be no world. That place has never been contaminated by anger, and it can't. That's why there's a Vavhe. That's why there's an entire apparatus to become angry at humanity so that that place will never get angry. That's the place that shines upon us on Shabbos. That's why you say, Apayre Sukkah Shalom Aleinu wa Kalam Yisrael V'al Yerushalayim. The truth, the will, the real desire for humanity to exist awakens. And then there's peace. Then there's comfort. Then there's rest. Then there's pleasure. Humanity comes home. Comes home to remember the will. They remembered the will that wants them. All week they didn't know if they want. They wanted conditionally, if this is going to work out, and if that one will behave this way, and if the bank account will be at this amount, then maybe. But Shabbos, there's no conditions. The will remembers, why would I even want money? What is money to me if I don't exist? Oh, I want to exist. That's why I want money. Okay, let's take it slow now. I want to exist. Let's rest on that for a minute before we move on. I like existing. Existing is cool. All the cool people exist. And then the conditions become less relevant. Because conditions will mean I'm sacrificing existence in some way. If I say, I'm not going to be cooperating unless there's this or that, then I'm making less existence. So I'm contradicting what I just celebrated. I exist. That's important to me. It's a big deal. But, say what? And so this is at the core. Existence at the core. Everything you want because you exist. Oh. So then is it fair that you will want that so much that it interferes with your existence? That it reduces? That it changes the quality in some way? So when we wake up the Ratzon, then nothing matters. There can be no moodiness. The Ratzon to existence is solid. That's what keeps it going. That's why it continues existing so stubbornly. Even when humanity would have said, what? The price is too high. It exists not because humanity wants it. It exists because something else wants it. That something else overrides humanity. That something else is the real humanity. The humanity we haven't met because the cultures don't give access to that. The cultures give access to the moody side. The cultures have cut man down so that he can be manageable, so that they can control him easily, so that he'll do whatever they need him to do to build whatever they need to build, whatever they think is important, to become another brick in the wall that ran all day, every day, and yeah, he was the man. You see, look at him. He's keeping everything going because of him. And where is he? Where can we see him? Can we see him in a museum? Can we see a statue of his? There was no one there. He was overrun by what he had to do. That's not life. That's not what he came here for. That's not what he would want to do if we asked him. That's what he had to do under the circumstances. What circumstances? Circumstances we ourselves created. Those circumstances. He is a part of the ones that create the circumstances. And then he blames the circumstances. Stop creating those circumstances. Then we lose sight of the unconditional will. If we're running after the invisible dream that's really a nightmare, then we lose sight of the will. The will that wants, the will that agreed to all this, the will that allowed this process to start and make sure it continues. That's what we're leaning up against. That's who's supporting us. And so this name, the Shem Havaya, represents when the Creator dresses up within the Midas. Sometimes he is kind and sometimes he turns away. But the Shem Havaya represents compassion, meaning, yes, sometimes I turn away, but I'm compassionate about it. I really want to be there for you. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes you're not ready for me to be there for you. Sometimes I have to pretend like I'm not there for you. And so when he's pretending not to be, he's doing it out of compassion. He's the Midas Rachamim. But the face that you're seeing is not the Midas Rachamim. And so Kuzu, which is called Achoraim because it's the letters that come right after, it points to the face that you're going to see when the Shem Havaya turns away. So therefore it's Midas Adin. It comes from the side of Gevurah. It comes from the left side. So that's why it says, Shem Havaya Midas Rachamim, V'Shem Kuzu, Shu Midas Acharayim, and Midas Gevurah. V'Osios Kovov min Shem Kuzu, Hu Misper Shel Shem Havaya Baruch Hu. So Kovov, the first two letters, like we've said, is the same number as the full name, Yud Hey and Vav Hey. The letters that remain after Zayin Vav is 13. Nimtza she'oidev Shem Kozo she'midas Gevurah, the name of strength, the name from the left side. Al Shem Havai Midas Rachmim, em oisius Zayin Vav, the leftover letters. Lekach Omar, Gam Zu letoiva. Haine Gam Zu, she'midas Gevurah letoiva yikol b'chesed. There was something would happen and it doesn't seem good, so he would connect it to the Shem Havaya. Nachum Gam Zu. How would he connect it to Shem Havaya? He would say, Gam Zu, this is the Kuzu. Why don't I see the compassion? Because it's a Kuzu situation. Hashem Havaya is not showing his compassion, now he's showing Gevurah. So you say, the Chavav is always there. Now there's an additional Zu. Gam Zu l'toiva. The reason why he's hiding is because of his compassion. This is how he would make the yichud. This is how he would awaken the compassion, because what is he actually doing? He's flipping the coin. By looking at it this way, he is seeing the compassion. If he is seeing the compassion, it's no longer kuzu. It goes back to Shem Havaya. This is why it says, Tzadikim are mahapach de midas adin to midas rachamim. Even when they come across in life a midas adin, they don't let it stay as midas adin. They're going to find a way to turn it over to midas rachamim. Rishonim are just the opposite. They take the midas rachamim, there's compassion, there's something okay, and they find in it midas adin, they turn it into a problem. And then it's a problem. Oh, is it a problem? The whole city is burning. Who said it's a problem? They said it's a problem. Nobody else said it's a problem. They decided in their heart. No other place. You can't outsource this. Can't blame anybody else. Not what we saw and not what we heard. There was a decision. And so tzadikim are mahapach midas adin to midas rachamim. Rishonim are mahapach midas rachamim to midas adin. And so there's Shem Havaya, and they see it as kuzu. So we said the Kof, the Yud is Gematria 20 when we add the Vav and the Dalet. And the Hey is Gematria 6 when we add the Hey and the Aleph. That's the Kovav. And then the Ois Vav that comes after in the name, Yud Hey Vav. Vav can be spelled Vav Aleph Vav. Vav can also be spelled Vav Vav. Vav can also be spelled Vav Yud Vav. So when we spell it Vav Aleph Vav, what do we have? 13. Zu is 13. So Kuzu is the same gematria as Yud Hey Vav, without the last Hey. Why? How does this happen? Because the Hey is the experience that we're having. Our nefesh is considered to be the female of the Vav, the female of the one that decides the midah, is the female of the one that was designed specifically in order to behave towards humanity according to the moods, according to the closeness and the distance that humanity needs. That's the Vav. And then the Hey is within us, the Nefesh Adam that receives this Yud and the Hey and the Vav as they interact. So when the Yud and the Hey and the Vav go up and they leave the Hey abandoned, this is when we have a situation of Kuzu. And so we're always trying to be meyachet kitcha bricha shchinta, which means we're trying to take the kuzu, the first three letters, and bring it together with the hey, and to be meyachet kitcha bricha shchinta. And so the yud, the hey, and the vav are begematria when we spell them out. Yud, yud vav daled, hey, hey aleph, vav, vav aleph vav. The gematria 39. And this 39 is the word tal. And this tal is what comes down to the hay in order to give it life. Like when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is getting ready for the yichud, it says, Sheroshi nimlo tal. My head is filled with tal. And then he wants to give that to the Shechina. That's where it belongs. This 39, this tal, is what Adam Arishon lost by the chet of the Eitz Hadas. And because he lost it, came Lat, 39 curses. 39 curses are the 39 melachos we don't do in Shabbos. And that's the 39 malchus that the person gets that deserves to be reminded that he is separating the tal from the hay. So when we don't have the tal, when we don't have the life force that's excited to enter into the life, then we're under the curse from the Eitz Hadas. And then we're getting the 39 malchus, and we're having the 39 melachos to distract us. And on Shabbos, where we go above, because we go back to the Yud Hey, we go back to the source that wanted us and wants us unconditionally, then we don't do the Lamates Malachos. Because then we go back to being blessed and not cursed. And so this kuzu is that when humanity is cursed, it means that the creative force is going to play with them conditionally, according to how their mind works. That's how the creative force is going to dress up for them. And there, within that dress, is hidden the potential for all kinds of curse. So when we know how to be mamtik at the source, we know how to sweeten this name, and this name means any manifestation that feels offensive to us, within reality anywhere. So if we know how to sweeten this name, then we can avoid the curse. Then we can be above. Then we can go back to the unconditionality of the Creator, the way that He is, not the way that we are. This means that when the Creator dresses up unfriendly, if I mirror that and I become unfriendly to Him, then I'm part of the curse. But if when the Creator presents a face that's unfriendly, I see through that face and I remain friendly with the Creator, then I'm starting to reach out to the unconditional side of the Creator. Because the Creator is showing us that offensive face because previously we have shown an offensive face, individually or collectively. Humanity has postured to the offensive face. And so if we want to go out of this offensive face, it means that we're going to show stability in our side of the relationship. And this will change the face. And so this is how Nochamish Gamzu was mamtik the din. By seeing within the situation, Gamzu L'Toiva, not allowing himself to go into the belief that this is offensive to him. This is not offensive. This is part of the plan. Gamzu L'Toiva. And this brings the Midas Agvura to be Nichlal in Chesed. It brings all the difficult sides of life to, even though they challenge us on some level, but in a different level, we can get sustenance from them. If we see them from the right perspective, we can also get good out of them. Versus if we don't see them from the right perspective, then we're getting hurt twice. We're getting hurt in more dimensions than where the actual damage is taking place. So this gives us spiritual resilience. And this is what leads to having access to the original will, the consistent will, the will that always wants. It's because of the access to this will that people before the Mabul, people before the flood, lived for hundreds of years. With the conditional side, you can't do that. Didn't work for anyone. There isn't a single one that could survive so long, because we're constantly being tested. We're constantly unsure. There's no security. But prior to the flood, people were very secure with his unconditional giving, and they rested on it and they abused it. This is what resulted in the change. It caused humanity tremendous suffering until a higher power had to get involved. And so when the original access was abused, a new form of existence came forward, which was much more volatile. The rope was much shorter. And the areas of life that this new human was going to have access to, much smaller, much more restricted, knows much less of himself, experiences much less of himself. He's kept in a very narrow path of existence in order to not allow him to really see what's his condition, what's his location, what's happening to him, why is it happening to him, who is making it happen to him. And so the experience has been narrowed down. Before the Mabul, entirely different experience. Today, I don't think it would be a blessing for anyone to live 900 years. Things can change, though. There is time within 900 years for things to change. Ein Vav. שמעתי ממורי, הן בסדר הלימוד, הן בתפילה, אם הוא מייבן פרש המילס בתפילה, מייבן פשט ההלוכה בלימודוי, אז מקשר מלכס שהוא דיבר אל הבינה שהוא מחשבה ודיבר פי חוכם חיים. This relates to how deeply we are involved with the spiritual process of the universe that's creating life. A human being is B'Tselem Elohim, but this is not simply to say that his body is in a specific form and a shape. Of course, that also, Mipsor Yechze Leha, means that it's very simple, it's very physical. And it also means that if we carry shame with any of our body parts, then we're disconnecting from our divinity. Then we're not really attached to the core, to the source that created us. Because Tzelem Elohim means that every single part, every single detail is according to the divine. If we're ashamed of our divinity, then certainly we don't have access to our soul. But beyond that, the functions, the things that come out of our body, the things that we create with our body, including the sounds, all this is in divine form. Because we know b'dvar Hashem shemayim nasud, he speaks. It's not just that he has this form, but in some type of a metaphor, he also uses what we call speech. And his speech is not a metaphor, it's our speech that's a metaphor. I'm pretending to do something even though I don't understand what I'm doing. And the reason it's so meaningful is because if he would do it, it would be very meaningful. So the more meaningful what I'm saying is, it's only meaningful because if he would say it, it would be meaningful. And I'm pretending to say it, so I'm giving you the illusion like he's saying it. So you're getting a little taste. If he would say it, that would become the everlasting reality. You would never be able to forget it. And so everything we do, we're doing as a metaphor towards him, and therefore the way that we do it and what we're doing is extremely important. And so to us it might seem like, what do you mean? This is so simple, a 3-year-old can do it. And the answer is yes, a 3-year-old can do it. But in today's day and age, can a 40-year-old do it? That's already a question. It says when a person understands what he's saying while he's saying it, he's uniting the worlds. Because there's meaning to this process. And so when a person understands the words of his prayer, or he understands the words of his learning, he is mekasher, he's tying the malchus, which is the lowest level of manifestation, which is inside of us. He's mekasher that, because the malchus is nirmaz in the dibur, like we said before. How do I exist? Because Hashem said so. So now that I'm saying so, the things that I'm saying are like me, and I'm like him. I'm sitting on the big throne right now, and I'm creating my worlds, just like he was sitting on his throne, and he created me. Everybody gets to create according to their level of intelligence and the power that they have to manifest. I'm not saying he did a better job, but nevertheless, there's something within this process that's actually relating to him creating me. In a way, while I'm doing this, if I'm really paying attention, I'm instructing him how to create me. Why? Because I'm creating. And I'm creating, I'm a metaphor. And so what's the nimshal? What's really being pointed to? It's being pointed to him and his creations. So if I'm paying attention to my creations and I create them carefully, and I understand what I'm doing, I'm invested spiritually in what I'm doing, I'm instructing him that when he is creating, he should pay attention and do so carefully. And he should invest in his soul in what he's doing. I'm instructing him. This is the nature of what we are. And so I'm mekasher the malchus, which is the human soul, the soul of all manifested reality. I'm tying that to the bina. The bina is the intelligence that creates. And this relates back to what we spoke about before in the name. I'm tying back the hay, the last hay, which is the one that's been neglected. Your mother's been sent out of the palace. The Yud, the Hay, and the Vav flew up, and the hay remained down here alone. I'm tying that hay, which is the Malchus, to the previous hay, which is the Bina. I'm going back to unconditional creation. If the Creator will be instructed by humanity to pay close attention to what he's creating, then he will create with unconditional love. Who is telling him to create with conditions? We are. And so we'll be Mekasher the Malchus to the Bina. Bina, unconditional. Why? Because what comes after Bina? Chesed and Gevura, right and left. After Bina. Bina, there's nothing yet that goes against. It's all united. It's still intelligence. It's before emotions, before attributes, before limitations. You tie the Malchus to the Bina, and then it's above all the attributes. Then it receives directly, it receives unconditionally. Ein Zayin from the Ben Paris Yosef. This is the Toldos. Oh, the previous one was actually from the Toldos Yankee Yosef, and this is from another sefer of the Toldos Yankee Yosef called Ben Paris Yosef. And it's similar to what we just said. Shorish HaTfilah, the root of prayer, lekasher din hamalchus, to tie up the dinim of the malchus, elematik adinim b'shosha she'ibina, k'mo she'ksavtem b'kamecha b'shem ha'arizah. So to sweeten the judgments in their root, which is the bina. What does it mean? It means that once a negative emotion comes out, we can deal with it in two ways. We can deal with it emotionally, and we can deal with the root cause that caused this emotion to arise, which is in the understanding. And so someone is upset about something that happened or didn't happen, and there's nothing I can do about it. And so I could just distract him to something else that's going to make him really happy. Oh, you know what just happened? You just made a lot of money somewhere. Oh, really? And then his emotion might move to a different place. He might feel good suddenly. He might change his stance towards reality. But then I'm leaving unfinished business. At some point, he's going to have empty time, or maybe he's going to go pray and he's going to be standing there, not busy with anything. Or maybe even his dream. This unfinished business is going to come, is going to reappear, and it's going to want to be solved. Because we didn't really solve the problem. We just solved his emotional crisis for the moment. But the emotion is still in there. The truth is still bothering him, and therefore we haven't really solved this problem. And so to really solve a problem means lahamtik esadinim b'shosham, to sweeten the judgment in its root. To sweeten it in its root means to change the source information, to change your relationship with the source information. What did you understand that caused you to get upset? Whatever that understanding was, it's some type of a misunderstanding, because every understanding we have is a misunderstanding. So find the holes in your understanding. And then you undo, you shouldn't even have felt this way. Not only are you not going to feel this way anymore, but you're even going to have regret that you even started feeling this way, because, oh, I misunderstood. Really, there wasn't any reason to be upset. So this is done in the level of bina. It's not done in the level of chesed or gvura. It's not like, oh, too much gvura, I'm going to bring more chesed. This is done on the level of bina. It's like, what was the original understanding that gave rise to this emotion? And to remove from there the judgment. Ein ches. Soit chashmal, shedor shel chazal b'gemara, item choshes v'item amalalos. Chashmal is in the Mekeves Yecheskel. Saw the chariot within which the infinite carries itself and rides upon the finite. And obviously the infinite is not something we can interact with, but we can see where's the beginning of the finite from where we can start perceiving. And that place is the place of the chariot. That's the place where the two meet. And from then and on, there's no prophet, there's nobody that can give us any indication of what's going on over there. And so it says that all prophets saw the chariot. Not only Yecheskel saw the chariot, but the prophets didn't reveal what they saw. They only revealed the message that they received. They were not allowed to reveal what they saw. That would be giving away too much. This is part of giving away the methods of how to get there, which they didn't want any of the other nations to have. Because going in there alone gives a lot of power to the human soul. So even if he doesn't know the ways and he doesn't know what he's really doing, he can still do a lot of damage. And so the chariot was never revealed until Klal Yisrael went to Golus. And then when Klal Yisrael went to Golus, Yecheskel had this prophecy, and within the prophecy he was instructed to reveal the chariot. Why? First of all, Klal Yisrael was already going into exile. The suffering was beginning. The other nations were in charge. And so even if he revealed these clues, people still wouldn't be able to get in there. But secondly, because he was on the other side of the river, he wasn't technically in Israel. And so people wouldn't believe him that he saw a prophecy. People would say that he's making it up because you can't have prophecy outside of Israel. And so he had to reveal exactly what he saw before he received his message so that people know that he actually went into the king and he received the message from the king. And so in there he saw the Chashmal, which is a force that interacts between the infinite and the finite, and sometimes it moves and sometimes it doesn't. Itim choshes v'itim emalaloy. Sometimes it's speaking and sometimes it's quiet. And so he says that he heard from the Baal Shem Tov the lashon of chosh mo. Chosh, he says, is being quiet, like waiting. Shetzorech lachshos at shemol v'kores haklipus. Oz yemalel v'yidaber l'masek adinim b'shoshan sheyisoy datfila shebir mori b'shem rabbi v'chulei. The Baal Shem Tov's teacher was Achi HaShiloini. Achi HaShiloini, he took sides. He had the instruction to take sides at the time of the Malchus Beis David. He was the one that had the message for Yeravam that he was going to be king, that he was going to be Melech Yisrael, and split the Malchus Beis David into pieces. And so Achi HaShiloini was the Baal Shem Tov's teacher, because he is now responsible to making sure that the kingdom goes back to the Malchus Beis David the way that it was originally. And the Baal Shem Tov was an inheritant of the Malchus Beis David. And he would be so close with his teacher that whenever he would go anywhere in any of the worlds, and he would be concerned about the forces that he's going to face or the depth of evil that people have experienced or committed that he's going to have to interact with, he would bring his teacher along with him on his journeys for protection. And so he said about the secret of prayer that he was saying in his name, in the name of his teacher. So that the chashmal means chashmal, which means that in the beginning, when we want to speak, the intelligence that speaks can become frustrated with life. And when that intelligence is frustrated with life, it's as if it's growing a orla. It's growing back a foreskin, it's growing back a cover that makes it lose its sensitivity. And so if we want to go speak to the Creator, if we want to pray, if we want to open our hearts, the first thing is we have to slow down and be with ourselves until we circumcise our koach hadibur, until we remove the orla from our koach hadibur. Because until then it's not suitable to come in front of the king. It's not appropriate for us to come in with the language that we speak in the street to other people, to speak with that same language towards the king, towards the source. That shows a lack of intelligence, it shows a lack of sensitivity. And so he said, Chashmal, first you wait, at shemal v'koris haklippos, until he removes all the husks, all the covers. Oz yimalel v'yidaber l'masek adinim v'shoshan. Then the mol becomes milul, to speak. Then he can release a speech that is so sweet that it sweetens all the judgments. And that's really what prayer is about. Prayer is about using speech in order to remind ourselves our real understandings of how we interpret reality, what it really means to us. And by doing that, we are supposed to understand differently. When we leave a prayer, we should be understanding differently than when we started praying. And so everything that we're raising is for our own consideration. It's to affect the heart, it's to open the heart, it's to release the judgment from the heart. Because this is our spiritual office. This is where we do all our spiritual work. And based on that is how things are really going to happen. It's not theoretical. It's a practical reality that your heart is in charge of how your life manifests. But not only in the ways that we today consider practical, which means in the ways that we can measure with our senses, but much more so in the way that we can't measure with our senses. That are much more practical, but they're spiritual. They're not visible to everyone. They're not visible to everyone because they're not realizing what's happening to them. It's not that they're not seeing it. They're seeing it, but they don't have a language to define it. It means nothing to them. It's like it's not happening. And so when we speak about the spiritual side of life, to most people, it's like we're talking about something that doesn't apply to them. Of course it applies to them. If it didn't, then they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be able to listen. They wouldn't be able to understand. They wouldn't be able to feel. All these are spiritual functions. But to them, they don't have the language to understand how these things are. And therefore, there's no practical side to these things. It just happens. The practical is outside of us, and the inside just happens. And so when we pray, we're trying to do something that has practical implications to our spiritual condition. And through that, we're changing our understanding. We're changing our understanding of what we think is happening, and therefore we're changing how our heart is broadcasting towards reality, and therefore we're changing how reality is going to react to it. Not something that we can measure, but it's something that we can perceive through intelligence. We'll do one more. Nkutim Yekarim. כוונת התפילה גם כן לחבר יוד שהוא חוכמה אל ה' שהוא המלכוס, שהוא הדיבור, על ידי הקול שהוא הוויה, ועל ידי המחשבה שלו, שהוא הבינה שלו, וסוד איה הוויה אדנה. ולזה נקרא שמה תפילה שמחבר צורה ליצרו. So this collects a lot of the things we've been talking about with the name, with connecting the hey. So here he's putting it like this. The Yud is Chachma. So when we pray, we use our Chachma, we use our intelligence to try to formulate. Then we're connecting it to the Malchus, which is the Dibur. So assuming that we're speaking with wisdom, assuming that we're not just repeating words because we were told to, but there's something inside of us that's driving the formulation of the words. So then we're connecting the Chachma to the Malchus, which is the Dibur itself. And how are we connecting it? How is intelligence becoming speech? We're using the voice. The voice is the Shem Havaya. That's why in the voice we can hear the emotions. It's because the voice is a conditional form. Like within our body we have many forms, some of them conditional, some of them unconditional. Like for example, the skull is unconditional. It's doing its work regardless of what's happening. Even within the skull there are differences based on how we're feeling. But the skull's function is always at full value. It's protecting the brain and it's giving structure to the head, and this is the leadership of the body. This is at the very core of keeping the body alive. But the heartbeat, for example, very conditional. What are we doing? Where are we going? The fact that the heartbeat continues, unconditional. But what type of heartbeat? Conditional. And the same thing, for example, the breath, conditional. The lungs, conditional. How much they'll expand, how much they'll open, what kind of access they'll give us, depends how we feel. If we're down, much less access, the breath much more shallow. If we feel alive, we get much deeper access. And so the voice is where the conditional can be heard. Someone has been crying and now he speaks. We hear in his voice that he was crying. We hear in his voice if he's excited. We hear in his voice if he is sad. So the voice represents that part that's conditional, that's been created to go according to the moods, according to the emotions, according to attributes. That represents the Shem Havaya. That's represented by the spirit. So the intelligence, the Chachma, is stable. That's represented by the Neshama. The Neshama is the unconditional power that we have. And the Ruach is the conditional power that we have. Sometimes we have Ruach, sometimes we don't have Ruach. We have a Ruach, otherwise it wouldn't exist. But the Ruach can be weak. The Ruach can be confused. The Ruach can be many different things. The Ruach is a conditional situation. And then we have the Nefesh, which resides in the body. So based on the Ruach, this is how the Nefesh has. The Ruach is not doing well, the Nefesh is not getting what it needs spiritually. The Ruach is doing well, the Ruach gives from the Neshama to the Nefesh, and the Nefesh is well fed. And so the Shem Havaya is in the coil. So how are we connecting the Chachma, the Neshama, the unconditional, to the Malchus, to the Nefesh, to the one that needs to receive, the one that's waiting to receive, through the Ruach, through the voice? How am I creating from idea till speech? The voice is creating that bridge. And so when I'm creating my voice, I'm instructing the Creator how to interact with reality. Because this is the entire manifestation process that I'm demonstrating here. I'm creating a metaphor that's going to now instruct the universe how to interact with itself. The different parts, the one that brings from the infinite and the one that's dressed up within the finite and receiving from him. All that is included in this little process. my motivations for this are of extreme importance. Why am I doing it? Why am I creating this process? What's driving me? Because based on that also I'm dressing up the infinite with those intentions. And so he's bringing the Chachma to the Malchus through the coil. And so through his thoughts, his thoughts are part of that manifestation process of how the intelligence dresses up. First into the thoughts, Shu'abina Shaloi, and then through the voice, which is the coil, which is the Havaya, the Tiferes. V'hu soy, this is the secret of Eya Havaya Adne. So here you see the shtalshelis of creation through these three levels of worlds, which is also Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. Eya is the Bina, is the intelligence, which is not yet, and says, oh, I'm going to become. Before I speak, there's something inside of me that says, soon I'm going to be, I'm going to say, I'm going to come out. Now I'm still a little thought, but soon I'm going to be making noise. And so that's called the Eya. Then comes the Havaya, where it's taking on form, it's taking on a voice, it's becoming, and it dresses up my attributes as it's becoming. And then comes the Adna, which is the actual speech, the words. It's dressing up and it's formulating and it's becoming concrete. So this entire process is an instruction to manifestation, to creation, to the entire capsule of reality from the beginning till its end. Everything is encapsulated in every process like that. And how I'm doing the process and why I'm doing the process and what's doing the process with me and what's trying to stop me from doing the process. All this is instructing directly. All these metaphors together, and from there we get the actual manifestation. That's why it's called tefillah. Tefillah is miloshen tofel, of attaching something to something. Something is smaller than something. Something is in reference to something. That now he's dressing up as the creator because he's doing the creative process. And by doing the creative process, he's instructing the creator how to do the creative process. And so in that moment, he's a little creator. He's Medam Etzura Leyotzra. And so he's like a tuffle to the big creator. In those moments, the big creator is the dish that's being served, and he is the spices that add taste to it. That's like, how is life going to come? Let's spice it up. How are we going to spice it up? We're all going to put in the spice. Whatever flavors we appreciate, that's what we're going to create. That's how we're going to instruct them to create it. So when we're praying, we are becoming the tuffle to the ikar. We're turning towards the ikar and we're becoming a tuffle. We're realizing our place in how we formulate him, how we formulate his relationship with us. And this is meyached all the worlds. This is what unites all the worlds. This is what brings his presence back into creation. This is what he expects from us. L'saken olam b'malchus shadai, v'chol b'nei basar yikra b'shmecha. May it happen soon.